Blueprints is an interesting mix of a puzzle game and a roguelite, which sounds weird, right? Like, how can puzzles, something that tends to rely on very specific parameters, work with randomness thrown into the mix? Well, turns out it works really well, actually. So well, in fact, that this might be one of the best puzzle games just ever now. So the premise, after your uncle's passing, he leaves his mansion to you, but in order to earn it, you have to first reach the mythical 46th room of his house, which has a quirky habit of completely rearranging itself every day. The house is divided up into a 5x9 grid, and every time you open a door, you're given a choice of one of 3 rooms to build, and you only have about 50 steps, which only count down when you enter a room. But not all rooms are the same. Some curve, some only have 1 or 2 entryways, some are dead ends but can give valuable resources and items, some are dead ends but are imperative for puzzles in completely different rooms. So this means just figuring out how to get to your destination. The correct order to sort of jigsaw your way to the 46th room is a puzzle in and of itself. There were many times where I had all of the right items and plenty of resources, but my poor planning resulted in me losing. Most roguelites, the choices you make are all about getting items, new abilities, healing, or what have you, but you never have to worry much about the path you take. If you have the skill, if you dodge the enemies enough and hit the bad guys hard enough, you'll eventually get to your destination. And I love that, don't get me wrong, but in Blueprints, I had to be careful not to build myself into a literal dead end. I was thinking about the room layout, how many points of entries it had, as much as what the room would give me. There are resources and items that you need to carefully balance. Keys to unlock rooms, gems to unlock rarer rooms, and coins to buy items. There were also items like a metal detector and a shovel which helped me find items. All of them were imperative for getting further and further into the mansion, and in some cases necessary for some puzzles. But there were plenty of runs where I had plenty of resources and items but failed because I just didn't plan the layout well enough. But like any good roguelike, I never cared too much if I failed, because I felt like I always got something out of it. There are permanent upgrades that can increase the amount of steps you have or give you some resources to start each run with, but you're not getting these upgrades very often. Instead, it's more about your understanding of the game that you bring back into the next run. I would find a room, think it's pointless, only to realize I was actually connected to a completely different room, and was part of a puzzle there, giving me a steady string of those aha moments that would almost compound on each other, as one room would be the final piece of a puzzle, which would in turn help me complete another puzzle or lead to something else entirely. There were so many rooms that I initially thought were pointless dead ends, things I would never use until eventually I would try them because, hey, I was going to lose anyways, and again, I would see that those supposedly pointless rooms were actually part of something else, or it had an effect I didn't expect, or that was way more useful than I thought. I had one run where I found a key item that I wasn't able to use yet. I built myself into a dead end and was about to end and start fresh, only to remember that I had a room that would allow me to store an item. I never used it much before that, as I thought you could only use it to store items like the shovel and metal detector. Useful, but I didn't have much trouble finding them naturally. But then I realized I could store that key item, helping me in a later run, making that room almost a mainstay going forward. I actually almost got excited when it looked like I was going to lose because it gave me an excuse to just build random rooms just to see what they would do. This roguelite format also prevents you from ever really getting stuck and therefore frustrated. I, like many people I imagine, tend to just bash their head against the wall until they figure out a puzzle. But because it's a roguelite, you almost have to move on. As I mentioned earlier, puzzles often require multiple rooms to complete or to find solutions for some. And because of the limited amount of steps, if you get stuck, you will have to reset and go into a fresh run. This prevented me from getting stuck and frustrated on any one puzzle for too long. Even if you don't reset, there are plenty of mysteries, so if you get stuck, you probably already got a room with another puzzle you can go to and work on instead. You may go into a run, hell-bent on finishing one specific puzzle, only to then get a series of rooms or items that direct you to a completely different puzzle instead, so you go for that. You may get a shovel, so now you want to focus on green rooms because they have more spots to dig. Another one, you may get a special key. It's a brilliant way not only to prevent you from getting stuck, but also keep things fresh. You're not staring at the same puzzle for too long because of that. So whenever a puzzle you were stuck on comes back into rotation, you go back into it with fresh eyes, because you've been working on 3 or 4 other puzzles in the meantime, or you got a new room in another run that gave you a new clue. So you always feel like you're making progress, never getting stuck, and always feel like you at least have a new idea to try. This does have the downside though, that sometimes you'll just figure out what you need to do, or you have a theory you want to try, but you just can't get the right room to even attempt it, which can get very annoying. I got to a point near the end where I knew what I needed to do, I just couldn't get there. No matter how hard I tried, the RNG just wasn't with me. But even then, even though I lost, even though I didn't carry over any resources to increase my stats to make the game easier, I still learned something. I still got to fundamentally improve as a player noticeably every run, and that's awesome. That's something I don't feel in most games. It's almost more satisfying than most other roguelites. As far as what the puzzles actually are, it's kind of hard to talk about because I don't want to spoil anything. There's a lot of logic puzzles, there's some math puzzles, there's stuff like the chapel, which at first just seems like it has a bunch of negative effects, but a bunch of doors, making it enticing to draft. But there are things in that room that are part of another puzzle for a completely different room, so you'll probably get to the chapel, go through it, not think much at first, and then hours later, get to another room, look around you, and suddenly everything just clicks. You recognize something that reminds you of the chapel, and rush back there or hope to draft it again. Or you may notice that some rooms have these ducts leading in and out of the room on the ceiling, and again, hours later, you'll find something that connects with that. It is so satisfying when everything just clicks together, and you realize this puzzle or the answer to it has been staring you right in the face this whole time. And it feels so natural when you learn of these things. Some of these puzzles are just so good and well integrated into everything else, you just don't realize you're even doing a puzzle sometimes. Then there's also smaller one-room puzzles, like the billiards room, which has you doing some simple math equations, or another room that has more of a word problem to work through. And the fun thing is that for some of those simpler puzzles, the more you progress, the more layers that the game adds onto them, so it never gets repetitive. In fact, over 30 runs in, and I've still yet to see a repeat of that billiards puzzle in particular. And this is one of the few puzzle games that have made me actually go and grab a piece of paper and start jotting down notes. Normally I'm fine with puzzle games. I could just remember what I need to, or the puzzles are self-contained enough that I just don't need to take notes. But I am currently sitting in front of a page with tiny writing that has everything from codes, ciphers, graphs, some elements from the periodic table. It makes me look like a madman, and yet whenever I look at it, I feel a weird sense of pride because it represents everything I was able to figure out myself. It's almost like looking at all your nice gear in a looter shooter or something and feeling proud that all the cool stuff you earned. It's like that, but with knowledge. This is one of those games where the more you put into it, the more you get out, right up to the end. When I thought I understood everything, I was still finding new things, new puzzles, new mysteries, often kind of hiding in plain sight. I found a new way to open the antechamber, the penultimate room to the 46, on my second to last run before I rolled credits. And I still have whole mechanics I've barely tinkered with. There's a whole crafting system where you can combine items, and if my suspicions are right, that could open up whole new paths for me. This is a game where you will beat it in one way, and then talk to a friend and they'll have done things in a completely different way. There are still mysteries in this game I'm still uncovering even after beating it. Layers of the game still unraveling to me. Every time I thought that I understood everything the game had to throw at me, every time I was like, okay, I understand what's going on here, all I have left to do is get to the 46th room and roll credits. The game would reveal another layer, whether that was new rooms, items, lore, or something even bigger than all of that. Then all of those that would suddenly make me realize I had actually only been seeing a small portion of this game up until now. And the crazy part is that all of that stuff was always there. I was always able to get to it. I just didn't understand the game deeply enough to see it. You can technically beat this game on your first run. I can't imagine it, but you can do it. The more of the game that clicked with me, the more puzzles I figured out, the more rooms I explored, the more the game revealed to me. And long after rolling credits, there were still mysteries I've yet to figure out. Blueprints does such a good job of slowly unraveling itself, preventing you from getting overwhelmed with just how crazy and deep it can actually be, while keeping you interested, stringing you along with fascinating mysteries that in some cases you didn't even realize were there, or mysteries at all. What started as a simple plot about a guy doing weird puzzles to collect his inheritance became something I could never have guessed. The story actually starts off pretty bare and simple, but like the rest of the game slowly reveals more of its depth the more you dive in, and is related to some of the wilder rooms you find. In many ways, the story is also a puzzle you have to piece together yourself. You gather these red envelopes as rewards for some of the puzzles, which give you the lore and the story. But because of the game's roguelike nature, you'll probably be getting all the lore out of order, making the story another puzzle to piece together. But there's also little clues hidden in the environment for more observant players, so I would read about one thing, then suddenly realize a part of the environment I had passed by countless times was actually part of the story. It really works here because it is a mystery, so you're getting clues, hints at what happened through these envelopes and the environment, and the game just trusts the player to piece everything together. That all being said, I do wish there was a way to reread envelopes after finding them without having to redo the puzzle, if there is a way I couldn't figure it out. It'd make it a little bit easier to piece together the timeline of events in particular, since you probably are finding these out of order. Blueprints brings a fresh new take to puzzle games and executes on it wonderfully. It's not just good, it's not even great, it's the new standard. The new game every other of its genre will struggle being compared to going forward. It's something that deserves to be up there with the greats like Portal, Return of the Obra Dinn, and The Witness, and may even stand above them.